folks, welcome to Crowds Surfing. It's a day late, just been a busy week and one of our hard drives crashed, but we're back on board and we're talking about Kickstarter and Kickstarter projects. And in fact, a couple of the projects are ending very soon, so we better get on the ball and start talking about them now. Okay, so in the news, first of all, we have Enchanter's Overlords. This is one that's finishing soon. This is a sequel to the original Enchanters. I really enjoyed the first game. In fact, I'm making this my pick of the week. I like this game. I like it best as a two-player game where you're taking some decks, putting them together, and basically building one fantastic item. Like I said, this has 6 more decks. There's deck dividers. They changed the aesthetics slightly on it. And they have a wound deck, some cool new things. There's a hat now. So now I can have a hat of might, a hat of poison. How would a hat be poisoned? Well, whatever. It's a really fun game, and I'm looking forward to this. Sprawlopolis. This is from Jason Tagmeyer. He likes to make small little games. They don't usually get a lot of buzz, but sometimes they do. And this one I think looks pretty interesting. It's a solo or cooperative city building game. A $10 pocket-sized style game. It looks pretty good, actually. You're going to draw over 3 cards each round to tell you what the scoring is for that. I was pretty impressed with how this one looks. Luxor from Queen Games is on Kickstarter. You say, wait a minute, wasn't that just nominated for the Spiel des Jahres? Yes, it was, and that's the reason that they're giving for putting it on. Nothing spectacular here, nothing extra. It's just basically the game. You can wait and see our full review coming out later next week, where me, Sam, and Z will be giving you our opinions on it. Dr. Finn has a new game, Cosmic Run Regeneration. There's a lot of games that start with Cosmic, huh? And this is from Dr. Finn. He makes a lot of great little small games. Biblios is probably the most well-known one. This is a game we're going to be assigning dice. It says it's co-op, solo, or competitive. I'm always very doubtful. Co-op and solo, they're the same thing, essentially. But co-op and competitive, who knows? But it looks really good, and I like games where you roll dice and assign them. Brook City. This from the Sadler Brothers here is a cooperative game where you are heroic cops. This is from Blacklist Games. They'll be your heroic cops from action movies. So their last game that they made was like a Street Fighter or Double Dragon, I guess, style game where you just fight people as they come in, waves of bad guys. Here now you are cops working together to stop crime. I wonder. I hope it's not as complex as the first one was. I thought that the first one, I haven't done my full review on it yet, but I'm wondering if it's needlessly complex, honestly. There's too much stuff going on in it. I hope this one is not as big on that. But man, is the 80s nostalgia big right now or what? Imaginarium. This game is from Bombix. It's actually Bombix's first time they've gone to Kickstarter. This game is actually already published. You can see Z's review of it last week. But it also... It's a resource management engine building style game with some really weird artwork, and I think that might be hurting it because it's not currently funding very well on Kickstarter, but we'll have to wait and see. Deluxe Metal Meeples. Everyone likes meeples, right? And we have all sorts of meeples. There's companies that make different meeples with different stickers and things on them. Here we have metal ones. They look really cool. It's from the same folks who made campaign coins, and I'm pretty excited about these. I like to use these in my games. I'm not sure how heavy they are, though. Indie Boards and Cards has Kodama Duo. This is a sequel of sorts to Kodama. It's actually an expansion. It's a 2-player game, but it also can add a 6-player, and it adds things called spirit tokens to the original game. Skull Tales Full Sail. This is from Eclipse Editorial. I haven't heard of them before. They did another game called Rat Tales, but this is your pirates, and it's all pirate. You go out adventuring, you go on shore leave, you go to port, there's boards, you go on islands, and there's like tons of boards all over the place. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game. I'm not completely sold on the artwork yet, but it does have a very strong Argmady type feel to it, so we'll have to see. Level 99 has Imperial Spells and Steam, the Fantasy Railroad building game. This is, Level 99, of course, makes all sorts of fantasy-style games, usually, or combat games, usually built in their own universe. This one here is a train game. It looks like a Euro-style game, but it's using different resources, fantasy resources, and has special abilities. Will it differentiate itself? Is this something more than just a railroad game with a fantasy theme slapped onto it? Maybe that's good enough, right? But we'll have to wait and see, obviously. Crisis at Steamfall. This is made from the folks who made Assault on Doomrock. It is a sci-fi adventure game where you'll go out and explore. It looks like a storytelling style game, almost made me think of Seventh Continent a little bit in how it looked. I'm actually pretty pumped on that. I like this idea of going out and exploring. There's also a cooperative mode that you can play. Iron Rise is a steampunk adventure board game. This is a team versus team, and it's another big adventure style game. This one I'm not that interested in merely based on aesthetics. It uses actual photos. I'm not a big fan of people dressing up and you take a picture of them and it's in the game, because that usually looks like you took a picture of someone dressing up to be in a game rather than an actual fantasy thing, or in this case steampunk. But who knows, the game might be better than that looks. Cube-A-Majigs. These are reasonable gaming packs. They're for magic cubes mostly, but I thought it was interesting enough. They little card things that you put together and you hold little cubes and for drafting purposes and such. I thought that's an interesting idea. I don't know if I would back it myself, but I like how they look, and if I was a Magic or other collectible card game and played with cubes, it'd be pretty interesting. Morn Quest. This is from Backspindle. It's a cooperative. It's like a journey and mystical and fight some big bad guy in some fantasy style universe. I'm not sure. It's like not generic fantasy, but it looks like TV fan. I don't know how to explain it. It's a fantasy, like it looks like kids fantasy, but a little bit darker, a little bit weirder than that. Then we have Neverland Rescue. This is from Scott Alms. This is a 2-player, 1-versus-1 game. One person's playing Peter Pan, the other person's playing Captain Hook. And Captain Hook is using deduction to try to figure out where Peter Pan's friend is, and he's hiding him, and it's a back and forth. This looks pretty good. Now, the production level doesn't look as good as I'd want it to, I think. But the game itself, that sounds fun. It sounds like a great theme, a fun deduction back and forth style thing. And Splat Attack from IDW. This is a Nickelodeon game. I'm still, the splatting, the gooing, even from when I was a kid, still going around. But here they're taking it out of the realm of, doing it to some kids on a game show, and it's the characters from Nickelodeon, from SpongeBob to Ren and Stimpy to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so you get miniatures of all these different people, and they're running around. It looks like a pretty simple, basic take-that game, but it also looks like they're positioning it to the mass market. Streets of Steel. Hey, guess what? It's another 80s game where you go through and beat up bad guys based on one of these video games. And it even has that pixelated artwork because... Never mind, don't get me started. But I don't know. This is from a new publisher, side-scrolling game. It has a lot of very positive reviews. A lot of people are saying very good things about it. I'm not feeling it, though, from looking at the project, but maybe I'll change my mind. Goblin Grapple. This is like a simple... goblins attacking each other card game, but it almost looks like a variant or a bigger look than War. But the cards are pretty simple. I have a card here. I got a promo card at some place. So discard this card and draw a card if it's a major brute, end this round. So it looks like you have a round and you're playing cards back and forth, trying to outthink the other person. Simple is not bad, especially if you're looking at some of these other games. And finally, Arcadia Quest Riders. Arcadia Quest Riders. Now, this was an interesting Kickstarter because it's only a few days that they were running it. That's interesting. We'll talk more about that in Tom Thinks later on. But those are all the different Kickstarters that I thought were interesting this time. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. Well, actually, we're not ending the show. There's more. Here it is.
Hey folks, welcome to FOMO, the segment where I take a quick look at a game that's seeking crowdfunding right now, and maybe I'm considering missing out on it, and maybe you are too. Today I'm going to take a look at a game called Tricky Tides. Tricky Tides is a pick up and deliver game for 2 to 4 players, where you will set sail and try to wind up with the most gold at the end of the adventure. At the start of a turn, the first player will select a navigation card from their hand. This card will determine the directions they are able to move their ship this round, but will also set the suit for the round. Tricky Tides contains a trick-taking element when playing cards for the round, making this actually a trick-up-and-deliver game. Like most trick-taking games, each player must then play a card in the same suit if they are able to do so. The player with the highest card in the suit takes the leader token, and players will then move their ships according to the cards they have played in order of who won the trick. When moving a ship, you must decide whether to pick up goods on the new location or if you wish to deliver goods. If you choose to pick up, then you will select all of the cubes of one type and add it to your player board. Do not replenish these goods on that location. If delivering, then you return the listed goods on the order card to the bag and take that card into your area for points at the end of the game. Play continues like this until all players have only 2 remaining cards in their hand, signifying the end of the round. All the locations are replenished to their cube limit, printed, and cards are dealt out for a new round. After the 3rd round, the game is over. At the end of the game, the players will earn points printed on the order cards they have collected, and will check the monster sighting card assigned to them at the start of the game for bonus points. These are different for each player. Players will reduce any remaining cubes on their player board down to gold cubes if they are able, and will gain an additional 1 point per gold cube. The player with the most points is the winner. In addition to the basic game, there are 2 alternate ways to play the game, either by using the monsters, who will add an additional challenge, adding event cards to each round, or by using both. So that's a brief look at Tricky Tides. Now, I didn't cover all the rules. There are some great rules videos out there. We are limited in this. But before I go into my thoughts, I'm going to cut over to Andrew from Gold Seal Games and have him tell you why you should back this game.
Hey, I'm Andrew Smith with Gold Seal Games. I've got Tricky Tides here. Tricky Tides is a pick up and deliver game that uses trick taking to determine turn order and the directions that players can move. It's nautical themed, so you can be taking control of merchant ships, sailing from island to island, grabbing different goods, trying to deliver them to collect the most gold. It's a unique combination of game mechanics that is going to bring something new to your table. It's definitely an exciting game that piles a lot of layers of complexity, but still plays in about 45 minutes.
And why should they back it?
Well, it's an exciting thing, right? So this is something that you probably never experienced as a gameplay. And it scales, so if you want to keep it simple and play it really fast, or if you want to really get into the nitty-gritty, it's going to provide a lot of different replayability as well.
Okay, so now that you've heard from the publisher, let's give my thoughts on the game. Now, unlike a lot of games where I get the prototype sent to me or I do a print and play, I actually just got the chance to sit down and play this game with designer and also Suzanne Sheldon, who does the crowdfunding roundup over on Board Game Breakfast. And this was a delight. Now, initially, it was told to me this was a pick up and deliver game. And I was in. I love pick up and deliver. It's probably one of my favorite things in games. But then I was also told there was trick taking, and I love trick taking. So I was sold. Trick up and deliver, of which I probably made a few cracks on that. I wasn't too crazy about the pun, but it is what it is. As to the gameplay itself, I really like this. At its core, this is a pick up and deliver game. But I love that trick-taking element to it. When you're selecting your card for the trick-taking, you have to take into consideration the suit and the number in trying to take the trick and the order that you're going to get to play in. But you also need to determine which direction you want to go, because the lower numbers are going to give you a higher range of motion, whereas the higher numbers are going to limit your motion choices. So I liked that little bit of element of change up there. Now, as to the 2 add-ons that I didn't cover too much in the overview, the events and the monsters, I played with the events starting in the 2nd round and the monsters in the 3rd, and I really like those to the point I probably would just play with them out the gate every time I play this game. Overall, I really did enjoy this game. It is a solid, small box game that is satisfying, both as a trick-taking game and as a pick up and deliver game, and there's a lot going on, a lot of depth here. The only 2 complaints I really had with the game is something I've complained in other games. I don't care for those square small cards. I find them hard to shuffle. But that's just me personally. The other thing that was a minor nuisance for me was the fact that they went with tobacco in the game versus maybe, say, coffee. And I know that they are considering changing that, and I really do hope they choose to, because I really am not a fan of tobacco being in games as much as, say, in the past with games like Puerto Rico. But overall, this is a definite FOMO for me. I loved it from the moment I played it. If this is a game that strikes your interest, go check out their Kickstarter page, and I look forward to seeing you folks next episode.
Okay, I mentioned earlier Arcadia Quest riders, and I'm really excited about this. There's going to be big giant riders riding. You can ride your Arcadia Quest people around in and fight each other. It's like pets. It adds one more thing that just looks fun and equipment and such. But what I thought was interesting about this campaign was how short it was. I think they're calling it a flash campaign, up and done. And it seems like it's doing extremely well for this. And it's doing it without stretch goals, without a lot of extra stuff involved. It's just, do you want it or not? And some of us want it, so they backed it. And there's a lot of complaining about it, but I mean, the day people stop complaining on Kickstarter is the day Kickstarter no longer exists. But is this a good thing, or do you like this? You know, when I do Art of the Dice Tower Kickstarter, and people talk about Kickstarter, it's like, how long do you do that Kickstarter? If you look at any Kickstarter, you'll notice that there's a huge surge at the beginning, and then a smaller surge at the end. So it usually, goes like that. Like a small bell curve. And there's reasons that it's big at the beginning. It starts, people are excited. At the end, it's like, oh, you better back it now. There are some Kickstarters that break that pattern, but most of the Kickstarters have a very big lull in the middle where they're getting just a little bit of backing. So the argument is that you shorten the whole thing down and then you don't have that big long stretch. You make almost the same amount of money anyway. And then people are like, oh, I don't know, because if it was 40 days long, this Kickstarter campaign goes 20 days in the middle, even if I get a couple $100 a day, that's still an extra $4,000. But it does drag the campaign out. Really long Kickstarter campaigns are wearisome. You sit there and like, when is this thing going to end? Really short ones, you can blink and you'll miss them. I think if you're going to do a very short Kickstarter campaign, then you need to really build up to that point. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's here, do it. And I think that's kind of where you have to head in that direction. But what do you think about that? Do you like the really short Kickstarter campaigns? There frankly isn't many. CMON can do a lot of this stuff because they're big, right? But other companies have done shorter Kickstarters before, maybe a week, maybe just 2 weeks, right? And that's how long the Kickstarter is. And you get in and get out. It makes it simple, it makes it fast. The whole thing doesn't drag out. It's not long for both the backers or the people running it, and they can get started and get things out. And now I am excluding from this conversation companies that already have the game made and they're just running a quick, basically pre-sale for the game. We're talking about a company that's running it like a normal Kickstarter. And I find that kind of interesting. But what I mean by the first thing is they don't have the copies in stock. And like right now, they're ready to go. There are some companies that have done that before. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a fast Kickstarter. It backs. I mean, I understand the whole you might miss it, but if the company does a good job at communicating, then that shouldn't be a problem, right? Now, this, I'm not talking about, hey, there's only a couple hundred people who can get it at all, or there's an early bird. You know, there's some different variations on this, right? To jump in a Kickstarter at the beginning or not. But short or long, which do you prefer? Let me know in the comments.
Hi, this is Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about shipping and fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards. This is something I did over the course of 7 projects. For the vast majority of those projects, I used fulfillment centers instead of shipping stuff by hand. Those are basically the 2 options you have. You can pack and ship everything from your own house or your garage, or you can freight ship things from your manufacturer to fulfillment centers worldwide. Which has a number of benefits. That it can end up being cheaper and faster, more effective use of your time to use fulfillment centers rather than doing it yourself. And it can actually end up being a lot better for backers too, because a backer in Australia, say, instead of paying for shipping from the US or for the UK, they're paying for shipping from maybe 100 kilometers away in Australia. So I highly recommend using fulfillment centers. Some of the things to look at when you look at fulfillment centers, and there's a long list on my website. I'd highly recommend reading the article, How to Ship Stuff Worldwide 2016 edition. It lists my recommendations, which might change over time, and it lists a ton of other stuff that you need to tell these fulfillment centers. But you'll need to look at price, which is always important, but I would say even more important is packaging, because even if they price something well, if they don't package it well, you're going to have to pay for it twice to get it to that customer, or you'll lose the product that you could have sold to someone else. Speed, communication, problem solving, and the interface that they use for you to input all that backer information into their fulfillment system. A few other considerations and this is the type of stuff that you want to think about in advance of your project, is to think about what a shipping subsidy would be. So if like shipping your game to the US, you think it's going to cost around $15, you might build that $15 or at least part of that $15 into the pledge. And that applies to all people who buy the game. So if you have $15 for the US and say you build 10 of that into your pledge level, when you decide how much you're going to charge someone in the United Kingdom for their shipping fee, you need to remember to take that $10 off. So even if it's $25 to the United Kingdom, that subsidy is already built into that $10 subsidy is built into their reward level. So you would only charge them $15 on top of their pledge price. Also, I personally prefer for shipping to be charged during the project. That way, it's a known quantity. The backers know what they're getting into. If you are running a campaign where you're going to add a ton of stuff, where the box could end up much bigger or much heavier, then you might want to wait until after the campaign to charge for shipping, because it could drastically change based on how big and how heavy it is. There's a lot more information here. Again, I'd recommend the article How to Ship Stuff Worldwide 2016 edition. If you have any questions there, just ask them on that blog post and I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
Hey, board gamers. BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with more Kickstarter Lagniappe. That's right, I'm bringing you projects that won't break your budget, but throw in a little something extra. Here's what I'm checking out this week. Microgames fascinate me. Can a designer pack a punch with a game that has less than 18 cards? I'm always a skeptic, and then pleasantly surprised if they pull it off. Think 12 Games sent me the prototype version of their newest game, Seals of Cthulhu, coming out on Kickstarter starting March 22nd. They're the same team that brought you Dice of Crowns, Dice of Pirates, those little tin box games with a lot of gameplay. In Seals of Cthulhu, it's a two-player game that takes only about 15 or 20 minutes to play. Each player takes on the role of either an investigator or a cultist. Can the investigator prevent the cultist from bringing in Cthulhu or other horrors? Can the cultist complete enough spells to bring our realm to its knees? The game comes with 18 tarot-sized cards, with each player using 6 of the 9. That gives us a little bit of replayability. There's also some investigator and cultist profiles included to add spice to the game once you get the basics down. Each player will get 4 meeples, either an investigator or a cultist, a turn order token, and the rules. Note, I'm showing you a mix of the final and the prototype art, so this is not the final production stuff yet. We'll see more as the campaign unfolds. The core mechanics are simple. Players each have 6 cards. They're going to use 5 of them and 4 meeples. They will take turns laying down 1 card at a time face down, and then they'll bid for that card using their meeples or the power represented by any cards they already have on their side. When the bidding stops, the player with the highest bid gets the card, and the other player gets the bid back. The twist? Each player has the exact same 6 cards, except that the powers of the cards are reversed. In other words, your Cthulhu card may be a power of 6, called Control in the game, but only an influence of 1, while your counterpart's Cthulhu card is reversed. If you can somehow manage to get both the cultist version of the card and the investigator version at the same time, they join together and you get that item's special power. It could help you flip cards in your tableau face down, that gets rid of negative points, or turn good cards for your opponent face down. Remember, only the cards that are face up at the end of the game count for your victory points. You might even be able to swap cards from your hand directly onto the table in exchange for weaker cards, or maybe to build that item you want. As you can see, this game is all about reading your opponents, knowing what cards are still left to come out, and bluffing on your own bidding. It's easy to teach, and it's got that meta, knowing what your opponent did last game and trying to counteract it this time. As of this recording, the Kickstarter page was still not finished, but I hear the pledge level is very low. It's only $12 plus shipping. Plus, I hear the designer has some lagniappe planned. If the campaign hits certain stretch goals, even more cool cards will come out to supplement the gameplay. Hey, so that's Seals of Cthulhu from Think 12 Games, out on Kickstarter right now. What do you think of this one? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, laissez le bon temps rouler.
Hey, hello there, Crowdfund Nation. Today we're going to take a look at Growl. It's a new and freshly take on a werewolf game, or Mafia. So the idea of the game is that everybody's going to start either as human or as werewolf, and they're going to pass cards around, so you may be able to infect other humans if you're the werewolf. So the way the game plays is, like, everybody, as I said, will start as a human, and you're going to pass cards around to your left and to your right. Now, the thing here is that humans can't pass bites. So bites are basically the cards that will infect other humans. Once you get 3 bites, you will become a werewolf. Now, you not only may become a werewolf, but you may also die as you take wounds during the game. Now, one of the things that happens in the game is that somebody's going to draw a card from the top of the deck and show everybody, and then is going to give that card to one other player. The players can argue, try to negate not to have that card. Now, so as I said, you have the bite card. When you get 3 bites, you become a werewolf, or you get the wound cards. Once you get 3 wounds, you die. But you can mitigate that having either a salve that will stop or negate wounds, or you can have a charm which will stop you from getting eaten by the werewolf. At the end of the game, we'll say a werewolf cry or growl, and then all the werewolf people will growl, and we'll see who won the game. Now, another thing they add to the games, you can get treasure or coins, and those are worth victory point as an alternative way to win the game. I really like the idea. I'm a big fan of werewolf of all kinds, from One Night Werewolf to Long Night Plays. And I think this takes a really nice and fresh look at it. I like the idea of passing the cards around and be able to infect other people. So the werewolf will increase, also how you shuffle and pass around. So it's almost like a trick-and-taking game mixed with that deduction, social deduction game. I really enjoy. So I think they only have a few more days on the Kickstarter, and the initial backing is $16 only. It's worthwhile. I played it, I loved it, and you should do it too. So I see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so that's it for another Crowdsurfing. Hey, thanks a lot. Sorry we were late this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks on Wednesday as normal, and we'll talk more about some Crowdsurfing projects then. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. See you next time.